Hello there guys, it's Joey. So this is going to be a requested video about crystals. And I'm going to call it My Crystal Relationships, I think, because that's how I tend to view how I interact with crystals and how I feel about them. And it was requested I talk about cleansing, charging, programming, and any other advice I have. Let's just there. Okay. So I was also asked to be on camera more. I found a semi-acceptable place I can sit. I can't sit on the floor anymore. It hurts my back too much. So I found a semi-acceptable place where the light isn't too horrendous, and it took me 2 days of going around the house and finding somewhere where the light wasn't blowing me out ridiculously, or I was in almost complete darkness. It was just terrible. Right, so I'm by no means an expert on crystals. This is based on my interactions with them, my feelings on them, my reading, my learning, my working with them over an extended period. I'd probably call myself a crystal collector. I freaking adore them. I think they are one of the most interesting and unique elements of perhaps the more modern practice of being a witch. It's not to say there weren't crystals in older periods of history. I'm pretty sure turquoise was pretty well known throughout the ancient world as a mystical stone. However, it's not the same as it is today, and that's okay. You know, we live in this time period. There is no point in trying to recreate a time period which we do not live in for a reason. And there are going to be at points throughout this video we're going to point out there are differing points of view. There are like camps of debate surrounding particular ideas and theories and practices involving crystals. And for the most part, I think it really comes down to how you personally feel along your journey as you interact with and work with crystals. There is a tendency for a lot of the books to be quite clinical, quite scientific, and not give a little bit more of an empathic point of view with regards to crystals. I understand this on a lot of levels. I understand why a lot of books approach crystal healing and things in a more clinical manner, in a more scientific manner. It's to do with being more reputable, being more scientific, rather than getting sort of degraded by other methods of healing work. And to be honest, I think that people outside of the spiritual community, people who just see all sorts of, people who see Reiki healing and crystal healing and herbalism as, new age nonsense, it doesn't really matter. You're not going to convince them. But I understand the approach and the reasons for it. I've never been particularly scientifically minded. I tend to choose on an empathic state, particularly with crystals. I choose crystals on how I feel, and then I come home and usually they all have a similar theme or energy, and it's to do with where I am at that point in my path, what healing I require, what spiritual guidance I require, things of that nature. So, cleansing crystals is one of these issues which is a matter of debate. So, what is cleansing a crystal? Cleansing a crystal falls into two generalized camps. Firstly, the physical cleaning of a crystal. If you bought a crystal, you might want to cleanse it of dust. When I buy mine from the market, they have that horrible sticky label gunk on them. And, it's the physical act of cleaning up your crystal. And then there's the spiritual or vibrational, energetic cleansing, of which most people in the spiritual new age, witch, however you wish to ascribe, label, community, are aware of the idea of cleansing on a vibrational level. This is whereby you incorporate some element of a different energy into cleansing your aura, cleansing your energy, This is done in multiple of ways. It's done, you know, you can actually cleanse yourself with crystals, but generally speaking, we have the smudging is well known. Originally, I believe it's originally a Native American practice. There may be other examples of it, but smoke and incense, I mean, incense can be tracked back through the church and things. So incense and smoke and the inhalation, and the smoke is believed to change the vibrational energies around oneself. Sound is used, water is used, fire is used, and earth is used. You can use all of the elements, and it's quite a popular practice in modern witchcraft to advise the cleansing of things through all of the elements. And you would cleanse a crystal, for example, in a bowl of salt water, and it can be salt added to water or sea water which has sea salt in it anyway, or, you know, adding water and adding salt. I have a video where I show how I would do that with a tumblestone already on the channel. I will link that down below, the cleansing of a moonstone. And the way that I was taught to do it originally was to use, you know, mix the water and the salt and do the banishing pentagram. And that's sort of using your energy in a physical act which applies your energy in the spiritual sense, in the energetic sense, to getting your work done, getting your witchcraft done, getting that energy into the salt water to sort of activate that magic within the salt water. Salt is sort of known as the universal purifier, and it's sort of Witchcraft 101 to know about salt being deeply cleansing. It purifies out negative things, draws them out, and it can also be seen as an enhancer. It enhances what's already there. So by cleansing it in salt water, you're enhancing the crystal's ability to resonate at its own energetic level. There are those who say that cleansing crystals is not required, that crystals have their own energetic vibration, and that humans applying their sort of egotistical natures to crystals, as if human nature overpowers the energy of a crystal, like we are more powerful than the crystal, so our energy overpowers it, and it's egotistical BS. And I tend to sit on the fence with this. I can see different points of view, and I can see the arguments. I can certainly accept that we over cleanse and we put an emphasis on cleansing things such as crystals. Perhaps too much. Is it required every full moon, as modern paganism suggests? I think in the end it's going to come down to your personal relationship with the crystals, the particular crystal that you're working with, what kind of crystal it is. I tend to cleanse tumblestones more than sort of the big pieces, the crystal beds, like Big Mama. And I cleanse them differently. Like the tumblestones are the salt water method. It's easy, it's simple. I have quite a lot of tumblestones, so it's a good, quick, really, you know, it's good to do. It's a good energy to really just cleanse out the tumblestones in particular. I use them for gridding, which we'll talk about in a bit. And someone asked me how I store my tumblestones ages ago, and I completely forgot all about it, so I just remembered when I was doing this. I have all my little tumblestones in little bags, and they're in a box. And then the bigger pieces tend to have their own little boxes and things, and they're separate. Okay. So, as to whether or not crystals sort of pick up on human energetic debris, it's a difficult one for me to really say. I mean, I'm not an expert, like I said. It's difficult for me to give you a definitive answer because I can really see both points of view with this, because I can see crystals being like their own energetic ecosystem, if you like, and they vibrate and work in their own way. And once you form relationships with particular crystals and really get to know the energy of that crystal, it becomes abundantly clear just how full of life they are, in a completely different way to human beings, but still. And then on another level, I can understand the need to sort of cleanse something, because you know that the way that human society works now, the modern society we live in, the crystals have been possibly, between homes in an environment that you don't know, and they could carry some energy over with them. They could have come through less than ethical mining methods, which you should be aware of, and really, try and avoid buying crystals that have been unethically mined. And then there are crystals that have been reformulated by human hands, and some people won't touch those at all. But at what point do you think that then that needs cleansing from its previous life, just in case? It's really up to how you feel when you interact with that crystal. I think you have to trust your intuition, and if you feel that it needs cleansing, then just do it, and it doesn't really matter about the arguments of what everybody else says. I think that when you first purchase a crystal, it can be nice in a sort of ritualistic sense to cleanse it. And I'm going to show you what I mean. Okay, so let's go with the Midnight Moonstone. So this is a Midnight Moonstone, palm stone, that was a gift from Miss Ange, actually. And it has a really wonderful energy. And when it came, this isn't what happened, but let's say it is. So when it came, I decided that I wanted to thoroughly cleanse it, and then I wanted to sort of incorporate that into a ritualistic sense, to sort of bring it into my energy field, to welcome it to my magical path, to sort of set my intention for it being a magical item. So I might cleanse my palm stone, and like I said, you can smudge. This is a blue sage, frankincense and myrrh smudge stick. It's lovely. So you can smudge. Now I'm just gonna put something in here just to, because it's been irritating me. The abalone shells, which people keep picturing with smudge sticks. Don't do that. Like, abalone shells are from the sea. They're water. They are these beautiful little bowls of sea magic, and sticking blooming fire ashes in it is so disrespectful. Don't do that. God, it just bugs me. It's one of these modern practices that's shown all the time, and it's like, really, we're like in this beautiful shell that it's come from the ocean and water and all those depths, and we're putting fire debris in it. Okay. Yeah, so smudging is one method in which you can, if you so wish, smudge a crystal. So that's if you enjoy the smudging method, you can use it. It's not actually something I would do. If I was going to smudge a crystal, I'd probably go with the resin on a charcoal. And you can pass it over a flame. So that would be your fire, but if you're using your charcoal disc, it's kind of fire and air in one, so it kind of works really well with that. You can cleanse a crystal by placing it in some earth. Get some dirt from outside, a jar of dirt, and place it in it for a number of time. You can also do that with sand if you live near the ocean and things like that. You can also use tree magic with a crystal. My video on cleansing jewelry utilizes rain and the tree, and you can do that sort of thing with crystals as well. However, be aware that some crystals are damaged by water, so you don't want to be putting those in water, particularly selenite, and in fact a lot of the ite family are not happy in water, so just check it out. Be aware of what you can and cannot put in water or use around water. I'm going to talk about a separate cleansing method in a second, but then I do the rebirthing method. This is something I read in Sarah Ann Lawless's blog website. I use this. If you know about Morrigan and Roses, then you know. If you don't, then it doesn't really make any difference. But you can use just a plain black cloth, and you place your crystal, and you cover it with the intention of that this is a symbolic act of your crystal, or in fact any magical tool, going into the void in order to be reborn. So this is sort of like the death of its previous life, and then it's being reborn into your life, your magical path. You can place these items on your particular altar, your working altar, your spiritual altar, or however you best see fit. A spiritual place is preferable, I would say. And then you make a special event of allowing it to be reborn. And something that I do that I haven't read anywhere, but I was talking to a friend about it, I was talking to Miss Michael about it, and is actually sort of going against tradition a little bit, and I sort of charge the darker crystals, like this one, at the dark moon, with it being a strong time of Morrigan energy. So these particular, like the Midnight Moonstone and the Obsidian and the Smoky Quartz and the Kyanite and the Dark Tourmaline and the Rainbow Obsidians down there, and the Garnets are down there as well, and so on and so forth. I was charging them up at the dark moon because that's Morrigan's time and they are the darker crystals. So that just made more sense, felt right within my energy scope. That's not something I've read or anything like that, but there you go. So say you were doing this and then you were rebirthing it at the dark moon or the new moon, and then you would, you know, greet it, welcome it, hold it in your energy, bring it into yourself perhaps, and just welcome it into your magical path. So before I get on to sort of like connecting with the energies of crystals in sort of that personal relationship, also sort of, you know, the sort of charging and programming side of it, I'm going to talk about my preferred method of cleansing. And before I talk about that, actually, there is something else I wanted to mention. We do tend to do this over cleanse, but I think it really depends on what you are using your crystals for. If you are using your crystals for a sort of positive draw magic, so abundance, finances, wealth, love, friendship, that sort of joyous attraction thing, I don't think those need cleansing in the same way as deep healing, shadow work, protection and banishing work would require, just because of the kinds of energies that you are using and what you are using your crystals for. So Big Mama here gets used for mega healing. She's a mega healing crystal. Big Mama is her name, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute because of relationships with crystals. She is a cluster, a crystal bed, and basically she goes right here and she basically deep heals and she draws all that crap out, and I can feel her doing it right now, just sat here, and she just pulls all that energy out of me, pulls the ick out of me, pulls any blocks out of me, just and if you're using crystals for shadow work when you're particularly upset, you're particularly distraught, you're particularly distressed by the process, or you're using it for healing work, especially if you're using crystals for healing yourself and others, then you are, you know, basically bringing crystals into constant contact with other people and other people's energies, and those energies might not be so great because of healing and all the emotions that go with it. Then you probably do need to cleanse the crystals a little bit more, just to give them a little bit of a helping hand. Your crystals will kind of tell you, in my opinion, but there you go. So, what is Joey's preferred method of cleansing? Well, Joey's preferred method of cleansing is this. This is a sound bar, and this is something that I haven't seen on YouTube yet, so let's start a trend. Basically this is insane. Ready? There's no mucking about with soundbar cleansing. I think it is one of the most effective my preferred method of cleansing, particularly with crystals. It gets right onto that sort of vibrational energy in a way that the other methods of smudging and cleansing do not do, because they are in a different energetic field as far as I'm concerned, whereas sound is reverberating, it's vibrating through those energy levels, and it's the most similar to crystal energy. You could also use a bell for that sort of thing, but I do love the sound bar. It was recommended to me by a lady who works with crystals an awful lot and whom I trust. So I bought one and I've been working with it for probably half a year now, maybe let's say 8 months. I don't know, it's around that. And it works beautifully. It brings crystals back to their vibration. It actually works with all sorts of cleansing. I think sound cleansing is perhaps the most potent form of cleansing in my personal opinion. It's just, I just prefer it. It's clean. If you live with other people, there's no risking them inhaling smoke and feeling ill. There's no problem to asthmatics or anything like that with sound bars. There's no danger of flame damage or ash damage or anything like that with sound bar cleansing. It is something that I highly recommend. I think that sound and music and that sort of cleansing, particularly with crystals, but in general, is amazing. It's something I highly recommend. So then charging. What is charging? Well, basically leaving crystals out in sunlight and moonlight is considered charging. It's sort of to feed your crystals, if you like. They enjoy being in those energies. They enjoy absorbing sunlight and moonlight. It's a very biological way of looking at crystals, as crystals being alive in their own little energy ecosystems, and they enjoy the light, the moonlight and the sunlight, in the way that plants would or animals would, and indeed humans do. And generally speaking, that's all the information that's ever given as to why and you charge crystals. I've already said that I charged my darker crystals in the dark moon, so basically there's no moonlight, but it's the energies around at the time because of their Morrigan association to me. They're the darker crystals, like physically darker. They're black for the most part, but they're also crystals that I work with when I'm engaging with Morrigan work, and that's her big time of the month. You can also worship Morrigan at full moon, of course, but dark moon tends to be the big one. And for me it made sense to have them there. I work with them in terms of Morrigan energy. I use them within her altar, within her healing work, within her meditative work and things of that nature. So it made sense to me to put them all together and have them there soaking up that energy. And energy is basically the backbone of what you're doing with crystals. It's a vibrational energy work, and they are said to vibrate at particular levels and attract particular energies and affect human beings in a particular way because of their energies. So the idea is that they absorb moonlight and sunlight. Again, I'm not an expert, but that's the idea behind charging. Programming, I am going to talk about at length. Right, and for that's we'll have lion. Okay, so programming is the idea that you take a crystal and you visualize your outcome and you tell it what to do, and you basically take charge and command it. And personally, I don't feel this is something that is really applicable to crystals. I think you could probably get away with that with tumblestones, maybe, but generally speaking, crystals have an energy all of their own, and when you start to really connect to crystals, you become aware that they have their own little almost personalities. Some really will connect with you straight off, and some it'll take a while, and some just won't talk to you whatsoever, and they possibly in that case are not meant for you. And that's okay. I have that happen to me. I have bought crystals, and at the time I'm like, I don't think this crystal is for me. I think I'm buying it for someone else. I just don't know yet. And that has happened a few times. And it always turns out to be right, to be the case, to be that this crystal needs to go to someone else. It's the case of the big rose quartz I bought was actually for my sister, and I was like, yeah, okay. And I've done that with a couple of people, you know, people I love and care about, have sent crystals as gifts that I believe will help them. And that's part and parcel of getting to know crystals, getting to trust crystals, and part of the crystal purchasing process. It just happens. And it's perfectly okay to not connect with a particular kind of crystal. In terms of programming them, I think it's more about forming a bond, a relationship, getting a feel for your particular crystal, letting it guide you, see how it wishes to be used. Some are quite definite in how they will be used, and some are a little bit more forgiving and will let you guide them and sort of suggest where you want to go with the energies. But some are very definite and some are very not. So some of the crystals I have sort of embraced have given me their names straight up. There is no discussing it, there's no feeling it out, there's no whatever. You just get this very strong visualization, this very strong mental image, this very strong picture of what they want, what their name is, what they how they vibrate, what their kind of energy is. Mab is actually on the altar again. I did actually bring her off the altar to do this video and then didn't do it in the end yesterday because the light was so bad. But she's a Numite wand. And the other one is Lion. So Lion is he's a golden labradorite. And he's a palm stone. And a labradorite is my spirit crystal. Spirit crystal is something that I started saying. I don't know if it's written down anywhere. I don't have a clue. But I was saying this for a long time, still am. And it's the crystal which you most resonate with. It speaks to you in a completely different way than any other crystal. And for a long time my crystal was amethyst, and then as I became more spiritually awake and moved through my path, it changed to the point where I almost never work with amethyst anymore. And I work with labradorite. This is my spirit crystal, this is my baby. And it's forming a relationship with the type of crystal which is basically, it's very difficult to put into words. It just speaks to you on a soul level. You look at it, you feel it, you pick it up, you like, it's something else. It makes you feel complete, it makes you feel excited. Particular pieces will really change your life. And there are a number of different ways in which you can really get to know their energies in this sense. The ones that really speak to you, you won't get a freaking choice in the matter. It will be right now, pay attention, no. Mab was like that. I had sort of visualizations, like images going through my mind in the car on the way home from getting Mab, and Lion was very strong like that as well. Lion's a very masculine energy, Mab's very feminine, and it just that's how it strikes you, and you just sort of think it feels and sounds a bit crazy, but I'm trusting my intuition and how it feels. And Lion is aggressive, masculine, protective, courageous, ferocious. He's a bit naughty in his sense of humour. He's got a good sense of fun about him. So he doesn't mind mucking about and having a laugh, whereas Mab is deathly serious. Mab is Numite. She's a shamanistic stone. She has this whole visualization of quite dark fae like imagery coming forwards, whereas literally I'll get images of men who look like lions or half men and half lions when holding lion. And I was like, you sure you don't want a name which is like, you know, like Leo or nope, lion, and that's it. And it's like, okay, right, fine. And Mab is a little bit more ethereal, darker energy, almost dark fae energy, more Morrigan-esque. The night sky, the mysteries, the vaults, the void. She's very much down that path. Whereas Lion is a little bit more fun, a little bit more silly. He's still very courageous and warrior-esque in his energies, but he's got like a good hearty chuckle energy to him, if that makes any sense. I know what I mean, and it sounds nuts, but I was, you know, to be a real witch, you have to really embrace that element of madness, because I read this and it was wonderful, I love it. You have to believe in your spell work to the point of madness that other people would consider insane. That you have to know it will be done, and it will be done, and nothing anyone can say will take away from the fact that you know your spell work will be done. And that's the same sort of thing with crystals. You just have to accept that you will learn as you go along, understand what your intuition is telling you, and just believe in yourself and your relationships to crystals. I think you have to work with respect with crystals. I don't think you can just tell them what to do and they'll do it. I think that's a kind of that's that human ego again. It's like, come on, just treat crystals with the respect and try and incorporate them into the energy of what's been going on. And what I often compare magic to when imbuing, I did this on the channel, on the Facebook channel, with the imbuing process, and indeed with connecting to the energies of things, is to compare it to song. Like, you're basically learning to hear the song of particular crystals as they all sing in harmony, as they all resonate together in the great song of the universe. And we aren't conductors as human beings, we are also part of the great song, and it's just learning to sing along together, basically, if that makes sense. So last up, I'm going to sort of talk a little bit about extra tools that I haven't already mentioned for crystals. So gridding is a really good way to get into working with crystals. This is my baby that Sterling sent me, which is a wooden grid. And you can get generators. The generators tend to have a point. It's a bit big for mine, but well, sort of. And then you can use your tumble stones around them. And learning to grid is a fun way of learning to work with tumble stones, crystals, and looking at patterns and things of that nature, that gets you into the habit of really feeling out which crystals work together really well. Crystal wands are another way of healing and as well as directing energy. This, of course, is another labradorite. It's lovely. And a good way of healing, simple healing magic, is to use these sorts of pointed crystals, because you can actually point and sort of draw out negative energies or blockages and things. And woo! Labradorite to the third eye. Woo! Hello. I'll be high as a kite for the next 5 minutes. Right. And of course we've talked about clusters and crystal beds. This is another crystal bed. This is one of the few amethysts I do still utilise. I use this as a charging bed for other things, so jewellery. And then you have sort of shaped crystals. This is a jet black skull, and this is from the Morrigan altar. The skulls have a wonderful energy. I was really apprehensive at first about working with skull shaped stuff, because I was like, that's a bit, isn't it a bit odd, a bit, you know, and actually no, it's not. They have an energy all of their own. It's a weird one about why crystal skulls take on this different energy. Perhaps it's just because it taps into our psychology and, you know, in terms of symbolism. For me, on a Celtic level, it's taps into Morrigan energy because Morrigan collected heads on the battlefield because the Celts believed that the soul resided in the head. So Morrigan was actually helping move souls to the afterlife by collecting heads. That's what that was about. Whereas some people are quite frightened by the prospect as if it's somehow to do with, you know, vengeance and bloodthirstiness, and it's not. It's to do with moving the soul on. They do have an energy wall of there, and they're really, really interesting. I highly recommend getting a crystal skull and working with them. It's really worth having a couple of reference books when you are working with crystals, particularly if you end up collecting crystals like I do. I pick crystals on intuition and how I feel, and so I come home and look up the meanings. Now, the best one that I can recommend is the Book of Stones. The Book of Stones, Who They Are and What They Teach, by Robert Simmons and Naisha Asian. This is an amazing book. This gives in-depth detail about crystals. It gives you chakra meanings, element meanings, keywords. Naisha Asian gives you sort of affirmations to do with particular crystals. Let's find labradorite because that's one I've showed, and to see what the affirmation is. There we go. I call forth the magic of higher awareness for labradorite. So there you go. And she talks about them in the spiritual, emotional, and physical. And Robert Simmons tends to just give a lot of really good information. So there's that. However, the Book of Stones doesn't have a lot of the crystals in. The crystal bibbles have pros and cons to them. They are not as in-depth and they're not as detailed, and sometimes I find myself arguing with them a little bit more than the Book of Stones, that I don't agree with the particular interpretations. And like there's this whole debate about self-cleansing crystals going on. That's, you know, that these books recommend that certain crystals are self-cleansing, when some people really, really don't like this idea that why would certain crystals be self-cleansing? That makes no sense. It's been made up, which makes sense to me. I don't tend to like the crystals that are supposed to be self-cleansing anyway, so they're not my cup of tea anyway, so it doesn't really affect me. But I understand that it's a bit odd to call certain crystals self-cleansing. It doesn't make huge amounts of sense. But there you go. The good side of the crystal bibble is there's 3 of them, and you can pretty much find all crystals that you probably... I have yet to not find a crystal in one of the crystal bibbles. There are 3 of them currently. I own all 3, and they do contain crystals which aren't in the Book of Stones. They are, however, perhaps less well written, less in depth, and less well articulated perhaps than the Book of Stones, but they are worth having if you are going to collect crystals, because you won't find everything in the Book of Stones. And last but not least, I've done a whole review on this particular book already, but this book is well worth purchasing if you want to work with crystals. The Book of Crystal Spells, magical uses for stones, crystals, minerals, and even sand. To the point where I bought my soul sister this book because it's so good. Now, it actually talks about the things that we've actually talked about. So it has, you know, crystal cleansing and charging, different ideas. But the thing is about this book is it basically tells you the ideas that I've, you know, the ideas of cleansing things, and it just tells you to do it, rather than giving you a particular point of view, an argument and stuff. But it tells you about using them to ground, creating jewellery, amulets and talismans, and all sorts of spells, home garden spells, you know, expanding your magic using glass, sand, metals, crystals and more. And it's really, seriously, if you are getting into crystals, this book is wonderful. It gives you lots of different ideas about how to actually use crystals, because that's something which is often lacking in a lot of crystal stuff. They'll be like, oh yeah, you can totally use them for gridding, and that's all you get. So this book talks a little bit about that. It doesn't tend to harp on too much about particular ideas in terms of healing, because you probably want a whole healing book. I have got the Crystal Healing Bible. I think that book is rubbish, so I would not recommend that one. But you know, stone healing circles and rituals and dream spells and prayer beads, numerology and using sand and different types of quartz points, and all that good stuff is in this book. Get this book if you want to learn different ways of interacting with and working with crystals. It's a really good book. I really, really enjoy that. So that's just a little bit of a book blurb at the end, and now the light has gone and the light has changed again. Oh, whatever. So I hope that was helpful. I'm not an expert, like I said, but if you have any questions, pop them down below, and many blessings.